and welcome to Tips and Tricks. I'm Debbie Nelson with Together SC, and I'm delighted to be here today to introduce you to one of the members of our consultant collaborative. At each of our Tips and Tricks sessions, we invite one of these wonderful members of Together SC to share some information with you, our members. So today, I have the opportunity to introduce Chamlee McGuire. Hey, Chamlee.
Hi, Debbie. Thank you for taking the time. It's great to be with you today.
Great to be with you as well. And I know that we've had some conversations before, and I've learned a lot about what you do at Heightened Development, but I thought this would give you an opportunity to share with some of our members. What is it that you do?
Yes, thank you. I am a consultant, and we have a range of services that we provide for nonprofit organizations, especially as they're trying to navigate change or are going through a lot of growth. So a good bit of capacity assessment and technical assistance and strategic planning to help them really grow their impact.
Great. So that makes me think about internal capacity and sort of the internal framework of how an organization works. So you're doing a lot of work around that. And we know that's really important work in this sector. I mean, we have to look at what we're doing on the inside in order to be effective at what we do with our missions and how we meet our goals.
Right.
But I think an issue that I often see is while we can communicate internally about that, it's really hard to share that information with outside audiences like our funders and our donors, and maybe even our grant makers, or our board members. I'm sorry, grant makers and board members. It's really hard to share it with them. So I guess today's question, what I'm thinking about is how do you have recommendations of how to really structure conversations about those internal capacity needs and why they're so important to the mission of an organization?
Such a great question, because we really do a lot of work sometimes on building our internal capacity, making sure that our operations are sound. And it's a lot of good work that leads to greater impact, but we don't really think about how to use that and to tell a story about our organization. And there really are two tools that most organizations use on a regular basis that we don't think of as external tools for storytelling, but they really are. And so that's what I'd love to share with members today. I want to talk about two tools. One of those is an organization chart, which most of us have. And then the second one is just your budget, your annual budget for your organization. The org chart, we often think about that as just a diagram that shows what the hierarchy is, what the reporting structure looks like. So we know roles and responsibilities. But often it really can be a tool for your board or for stakeholders to see where you have your where you're spending your time and money on your capacity, and also where maybe there might be gaps. So let me give you an example. If you think about your typical org chart and you draw a line down the middle, I always encourage folks to really build your org chart that way, making on the left-hand side your operations and on the right-hand side your services. And it can help to debunk that myth of what are the overhead costs of a nonprofit and begin to really draw a picture of what some of the supporting or operational pieces are that are important to a nonprofit. So on that side, you might put your volunteer management and your development staff, any admin support that you have. Certainly the executive director is going to spend their time kind of in the middle between operations and services, depending on how you're structured. And then on the service side, if you've got a couple of different programs, you can actually divide out those programs and really show how many staff you have supporting each program, and then putting a number at the top of that program bucket. How many people do you serve each year? And that alone begins to tell a story. It takes us 10 people in this one program to serve 30 people. And then in this other program, perhaps it takes us 10 people to serve 200 people. And that immediately tells a story and leads to questions and dialogue. And as an executive director or whoever it is that's having the conversation, you can talk about the fact that this program is much more intensive. And so it requires more staff per client served, and it can lead to some really good dialogue. If you find that the left-hand side is really blank, it's a great way to talk about the fact that, wow, we're doing all of these services over here, but the reason that we feel scattered and feel like we're running around is because we don't have anybody over here on the operational side to really provide that support. So it becomes a great tool. Your budget is something that you use on a daily basis, or certainly on an annual basis and a monthly basis. And it really is, at the basic level, we think about it as telling a story of our financial strength. Do we have a balanced budget? Do we have enough revenues to meet our expenses? But I really challenge folks to think about the deeper story that it tells. The way that you divide up your revenues, tell a story about where your revenues are coming from, how diversified they are. Your expenses, if 80% of your budget is your staff salaries, that's telling a story to your donors and your external stakeholders. And it's important to be prepared to talk about why that is. It doesn't necessarily mean if you're spending 80% of your money on your staff that that's not direct client impact. It means that it takes your staff to operate the services and make that impact. Maybe you provide around the clock care, or maybe you operate programs that don't require a lot of supplies, but they do require credentialed staff to really operate the services. So as you look at that budget as a tool for storytelling, take a step back and think, if I'm reading this with fresh eyes, what story is it telling me? And how do I make sure that I fill in those gaps when I'm showing it to others, and use it as a tool for where we have room to grow?
Wow, I love that, because those are two tools that I think we take for granted as nonprofit organizations. We have to have them. Obviously they are communicating specific types of information, but particularly thinking about taking your org chart and thinking about on the left and right side. That's the first time I've ever heard of doing it that way, and it makes so much sense. Really, and I'm a storyteller by nature. I love storytelling, and I love the fact that you're saying these basic tools in an organization really can help tell that story. And I can see in a board meeting when we're going over budgets, how pulling it in, telling the story that way can really be very impactful with our volunteer leadership. So thank you for those tips and tricks. I think that was a great way for us to introduce you to the members. And I know they'll want to find you if they don't already know you. I know you're out of Spartanburg, but you work with organizations across the state. And we will share your contact information if they just want to follow up and ask a question about today's session, or if they want to reach out and perhaps engage you in some change work within their organization. So thank you so much, and I'll look forward to connecting with you again very soon. And thank you to all of you for watching Tips and Tricks.